And welcome, hello and welcome to the RP Refugees podcast. Ted here, John here. A little bit of a false start to the show. John, how are you doing, my friend? How are things going?
I am all right. I can't complain.
Can't complain. Can't complain. You don't want to tell people what happened to you?
Okay, I was in a very minor car accident, but I am much. The other two cars were total. I have a little bit of scratching paint, so I kind of lucked out.
Yeah, you absolutely did. We're glad you're safe. If you guys noticed, I opened the show a little bit differently than I normally do it. I'm very much struggling right now. I'm sure you guys are well aware. If you're avid podcast listeners, like we know you guys all are, you all are probably well aware of what sort of happened on Sunday. I had to temper the fact I was excited about a DC win to hear awful news about a fellow podcaster, host of the Total Soccer Show, Daryl Grove, who his co-host Taylor Rockwell came out and said that the news regarding if you weren't aware, he was diagnosed with liver cancer, and that apparently has turned for the worse. There was surgery that was supposed to buy him time. The doctors have said that he is there's basically nothing more they can do for him. It's really sad, really awful news. I might bore the audience a little bit, but it's tough for me because I know Daryl. I've seen him around Richmond. I have been on his show occasionally. He stupidly thought I would make a good person to invite on his show. I don't know why he thought that, but he did, and he's. I thought Jason Davis said it best. He's the best of us, and it's really hard for me. I moved here to Richmond. I had maybe some high school people that were living here, but I basically knew almost nobody. And he was sort of one of the first people. He was at the time had joined the CSRN Champion Soccer Radio Network, which I worked at with when I did Around the League. He was such a nice person through and through. He hosted, I think a Wikipedia game for DC that I did terribly at. I don't know why I did so terribly. So he's just always been a really nice person, and I'm very, very sad to hear the news. I feel for his wife, for his family, who've endured more than they ever thought was possible. Cancer sucks, and we're gonna talk to a story about someone who went out and beat cancer, and we're gonna have this happen is it's hard. So hug your loved ones, be with them. I don't know how else to say. I'm sorry to open on such a downer, but I felt it would not be. It was worth talking about that. John, help me out here, man.
Yeah, no, I mean, so easy to do the transition from there. I will. I don't know Daryl like Ted does. Daryl ran the Offside a long time ago, which is the first site I ever wrote for about DC United. And I don't know. I think I did it for a couple years, and I didn't have a lot of contact with him, but he was sort of like the convening point for all of the writers, and he did a great job at that. And then he went on to do amazing things with Total Soccer Show, which is being talked about by everyone in the American soccer media landscape, which is awesome. I don't know who said it before, but they were talking about how important it is to give someone flowers while they're still with us. And I feel like if this is a crazy week for him, I'm sure, the crazier than any week could possibly be. But if he is able to pay attention to all this and see that every single person who he's come in contact with in this space has nothing but admiration and respect and everything else for his work and him and who he was as a person, I gotta imagine that's gotta feel like something. I gotta imagine that's gotta be taken to heart. And I echo you, Ted, and it's unfathomable to deal with this stuff for a person in sort of our age. I don't know exactly his age, but he's somewhere around our age. He's too young for any of this stuff to be happening. So, like you said, it just makes you a lot more cognizant about the ones around you and your loved ones, and saying the things that you want to say when you can say them. And let's try to talk. I'm sure we should podcast about the thing that we all that brings us all together. The reason that we know he exists, and the reason that you've come in contact with him and was on his show. Let's talk about some DC United stuff.
And that's what he would want. He would want us to talk about the sport that he loved and he wanted to cover. So absolutely. Let's get into it. We have a bit of happiness with DC. This is weird. This feels weird. Yes, last time I think they were one time at one point in the season they had a win and a draw. I think the win coming against New York Red Bulls, and then the 0-0 draw that we do not speak of, even though I'm speaking about it right now. But this feels different. This feels very, very different. I feel a sense of mild optimism, and if you saw my appearance on the Cincinnati Soccer Talk show, I forget the guy. I apologize. I forget the guy's name. That's not coming to me right now. But I forget, one of them said, "Hope is a dangerous thing." Well, hope
was it Brad?
What's that? Was
it Brad Weigel?
It might have been Brad. Yeah, Brad said hope is a dangerous thing, and I'm feeling hope for the first time. I don't know if I'm hopeful about this team making the playoffs. I mean that's far from being hopeful. This was a battle between two of the worst teams in the league. Let's be clear. You had the awful DC United and the awful Cincinnati. So it was a bad team against bad team, but there was a lot to like about this game. They outplayed their opponent. I think on the road they outplayed Cincinnati. Cincinnati had some half chances, some half opportunities. They were fortunate, but I don't think you could leave that game thinking they didn't deserve at least something out of that game.
Yeah, for sure. Both from, we'll start at the start here and talk about the lineup, talk about Bill Hamid's continued absence, the illness. 4-4-2 again. Young guys playing again. I think we were happy to see that. And also, there are injuries out, so the limited number of players you can choose from to make big changes. But Ezen Flores got his first start in many moons, and I think we have a different take on how he did, which we'll get into. But yeah, how do we start? What do we think about the game in general? Like from the start,
I think we have to start. We have to start with the best player on the field, which was 16-year-old Moses Nyeman.
Yes,
he had an absolutely unbelievable for a player at 16. Not even Chris Durkin was doing this type of work. He looked like he belonged out there. He looked like he deserved to be on the same field as everybody else out there. So, I mean, that in and of itself was incredible to watch. I mean, his recoveries were great. He was making things happen. He plays a role in setting up that second goal. It probably won't come to the stat sheet. It probably will be nothing, but I mean, he'll get the recovery and everything, but he plays the ball to Paredes, another, homegrown player who's had really good. But I mean, he came in to start in a tough situation and he stepped up. And
his stats: 29 for 38 in the game, 12 for 13 in the second half for passing, led the game in recoveries at 11, take-ons in 4, second in tackles behind Moore and Assad. And again, he's 16.
Yeah.
And again, FC Cincinnati sucks, but so do we. So you take your wins.
But I mean, you have to look at it from the perspective of that he's still playing against full-time professional players at 16. So this is like what we saw. If we see that week in and week out, then that's already better than what we've seen from a lot of our central midfielders. I don't think Moreno has done much this year that's really been to write home about. Canals has been okay. The most notable thing I think Moreno did was get a red card in the MLS's back tournament. So you look at that and you say, do you write and pen the center midfield pairing right now? The center midfield we thought we came in with Moreno and Canals. I don't know if you do that. I feel like you have to reward Moses Nyeman for the performance that he put in today.
Well, that, and I think Chad Ashton is not looking for that kind of midfield anymore.
Yeah,
I think a two defensive midfield pairing is not what he's about here for the rest of the season. So I'm actually, it's interesting we come to that, even though we've had injuries. Like, we have a lot of defensive midfielders that now we don't really have a spot for. Like, we don't.
Yeah.
Russell Canals doesn't really have a natural spot in this current incarnation. If it's right back again, maybe that's it. I hope not. I don't think anybody wants that. But it is kind of it's curious how in a very short time we have reimagined what our midfield is going to look like as far as what pieces we need in place and what they're expected to do. But Assad and Nyman in back-to-back games have shown sort of utility that they, I think Nyman was always a question of like, is he ready for it? Like that, the way he was playing in that game is the way he was playing in the academy days and what got him signed. And, not really in Loudoun. I think he really didn't have an opportunity to really put a stamp on the game. He didn't play there long enough really to do that. But we've got to be happy about finding a new pairing that is doing the work in a different way.
There's always the thing with a young player is how quickly do they pick it up? How quickly do you see them recognize, and show what they showed at the youth academy and showed at another level where it's faster and quicker. And the fact that, I think Charlie Bowen was talking about him and he said, oh, you can see it. And I'm like, okay, I mean, he doesn't look awful, but I'm not seeing it. This game I saw it. I'm like, this is a kid that if he continues to grow, I mean, the sky's the limit. I mean, there's a reason he gets named top 100 young players, I think, by a British football magazine.
Guardian.
Top 30, sorry. You're right, top 30. So, I mean, that in of itself is incredible. And to be doing it at such a young age, I mean, this is the type of thing that DC can grow on. We went from having probably one academy kid getting a start, Chris Durkin or a spot appearance, to now having 4 academy products that are contributing on a regular basis.
It helps to have the most unlucky injury luck of all time, and a coach being fired.
Hey, if at the very least it shows Dave Casper, if it shows the coach, I think it should direct who they hire. I think they should get a coach that can focus on growing those players.
Yeah, I think that's true. So let's talk about the goal, because I think that's the first goal. That will not be goal of the week or save of the week.
Yeah.
This week, a ball. You kind of love to see it. The third string goalie for Cincinnati, Bobby Edwards, was going back on a ball that was going out over the end line, and he contorted his body in all ways to try to make sure that ball did not go out for a corner. And then he dropped it on the end line, and Donovan Pines, fleet of foot and handy with the dribble, makes one move and then puts the ball in the net. I think everyone was looking for the ball to have been out. I think that was. I think Edwards was very drastically hoping that he wasn't as good as he thought he was at keeping the ball in, but he was actually very good at it, and Donovan scored. So that's 2 goals in 2 games for goal scoring machine Donovan Pines.
I hate to, I guess, rip on the goalkeeper, but the whole sequence was hilarious. It was like he's going up to get the ball, and I remember thinking, I'm like, why is he doing that? Like, what is he, like, the ball, it was, at first I was angry. I was like, awful free kick, Assad. What are you doing? That is terrible, awful, bad. Ball's going to, I said that ball's going out of play. I see him step up, and I'm like, okay, maybe he's trying to think, okay, I need to get this ball to recover it. Then he bobbles it. And I'm like, what do you, I'm like, what are you doing trying to keep it in? You might as well just let it go out for a corner kick. You're stupid. I mean, it'll be an embarrassing moment. You should just let it go out. And then he bobbles it. And then what's so funny is he looks up and he knows what he did. He knows what he did was stupid. But then you could hear him yelling, it's out. It's out. It was out. It was out. Like he's trying to I need something to bail me out here. Maybe VAR will bail me out here. So
It did not.
Yeah, hilarious goal, hilarious moment. Good for Donovan Pines, man. What was it? Second player to have 2 goals in consecutive games. The other one being Frederick Brilliant. So
yeah, our defenders just score goals.
Who needs forwards when you have central defenders? Speaking of forwards, they were pretty bad. Oops, sorry.
Yeah, they were. I think I have tweeted that I think we're going to have a bunch of new forwards next year. I think that is true. I was reminded today that Helman Rivas is under contract for next year. I don't care. I don't think that. I don't think the money that he's on is enough for them to not move on when they need to.
A clause in every MLS. I'm sure in every DC contract. How many contracts have you seen mutual termination? That is probably what's going to happen to Gilman Rivas. They're going to say, okay, look, you are now like down here on our depth chart. We need to bring in another talent. We're gonna let you go. Find. Talk to some clubs. Find a club. We'll let you go for free. They get you for free. I think that is highly likely.
Turkish fifth division team.
Yeah.
Or something. I don't know. He started well. The problem is that he's getting opportunities and he's showing absolutely no scoring sense whatsoever.
Yeah.
And this team cannot afford that. Our expected goals are going up here, and I think we'll look at since Ben Olsen has left, the games where Chad Ashton has coached, looking at what that has looked like from opportunities created, but. All of them disappointed. Eric Sorga disappointed. I know that there are some listeners that continue to be giant Eric Sorga fans. The guy has some holes in his game, and some of them are holes that you cannot have as a successful forward. But maybe he develops. But Ola Kamara also is not there. The confidence is gone and shot.
Yeah.
And on a player of his age and pedigree, that can't happen.
When you're consistently getting benched for Eric Sorga and Gilman Rivas, and you were a perennial goal scorer in this league, that is not it's not good.
Ashton is saying it's for rotation purposes, but that's, I think, to spare his blushes at this point. I think it's about lack of production, but he's not getting the production from them either. So this is where you start to feel for any of the coaches that have, both Ben or Chad, like, they're not scoring you goals for reasons. It's that they can't score goals right now.
Yeah.
It's just, that's the way it is. So DC relinquished the lead, as often happens, on another goalie. Not as bad.
It's a half howler.
It's a
half howler, as I said on Twitter. It's a half howler. It's a low shot on turf that bounces up, maybe a little bit unexpectedly on depends on how many rubber pellets are happen to be at that spot. And it jumps up maybe a little bit on sights, and bounces off his chest, falls right, and goal. So in essence, it was a wash. It was like one really bad mistake, one kind of bad mistake. So I think Seitz will be forgiven a little bit for that. It wasn't a great. Yeah, he's got to smother it, but when that ball's screaming at you, jumping up off the turf, I don't blame maybe Seitz as much as maybe some other people might. And there's also the notion, both Brilliant and Pines kind of let whoever scored, I can't remember, walk right into the box, literally, like unopposed.
Brandon Vasquez.
Yeah, Brandon Vasquez. So that type of goal that, yes, maybe Seitz should smother it, but also you would expect your defense to recognize that and also react, and not just kind of ball watch while an attacker walks through the defensive line. So there was nothing that any Cincinnati defender could do because your keeper has decided to do something completely stupid on Pines' goal.
Right.
So there's a bit of a difference there.
Right. All right. And so that was somewhat to be expected. I think the soccer karma gods evened out the game a little bit there. But then in the 78th minute, Chris Adoyatsam scores his first goal, showing his real impressive speed, his breakaway speed, in order to score his 78th minute. He almost scored, I think, a few more minutes later. I don't know how I have a minute on that, but that was very, very close. The goal, I believe, was Nyman to Paredes to Adoyatsam for the goal. And apparently Chad Ashton had been telling Adoyatsam to get forward more in the game, both previously and then specifically in this game. So great to see. I think you could see by the celebrations by his teammates, super excited to have him score his first goal. We all know the story of his treatment and long break from playing. So great to have him do that. He's had a really this has been his best year, clearly. Like, it's not even close, like, compared to game time that he's had and opportunities. I don't necessarily would not pencil him in as a starter next year, but he has certainly shown himself to be a long-term piece of the team. Onel Fisher has I feel like their futures have gone in opposite directions. I think Fisher is still sort of recovering from his major injury and the long layoff that occurred, and Odoyatsum has really made himself a building block of the team for the future.
And that's it. I mean, Fisher. I think that injury, Fisher's biggest asset was speed. He still has it, but it's clearly not what it was and what made him so effective. And I think that's ultimately what he's going to struggle with. If he can't be a speedy winger, speedy on the in the right and left back position, so you can get forward quickly and sort of create those opportunities where you have overlaps and overloads, which is what what the game has become with a lot of these right and left backs, is they're becoming more offensive minded players along with sort of having defensive recovery ability. So if you don't have that, then you're going to struggle, and I think that's what we're seeing with Fisher. And Odiatsum, I think, definitely had a year off recovering from cancer, and he is, I think, starting to find his legs a little bit. So fantastic story, really, for him. You couldn't ask for sort of a better recognition of kind of how he's come. Yes, he's a defender. He's not going to score a lot of goals, but it's certainly good. It's certainly good to see, and I'm sure it's something he will remember for the rest of his career. So
they won. We wrap that up. That's happened. Let's talk about any other performances. I think Edison Flores, had moments for me. What I'd like to see him do is really take over a game and control portions of the game, be it sort of the tempo or have him be a fulcrum for passing. The challenge is I don't really know much of his career before here, so I don't know the type of player I can expect him to be. I think he played well, better than he has. I'm still not, and he's still obviously getting back into fitness. This is his first start in a long time, but I thought he was just okay. What were your thoughts on him?
I mean, I would agree with that. I think he's showing flashes. It's very much, which is better than what we were seeing. We were seeing nothing. Like there were nothing highlight related that you could point to, nothing you could see that would say, oh, this is a guy who's starting to put it together. There was nothing. Now I'm seeing flashes. I think he needs this. You need a structure, I think, around him that's going to support him maybe a little bit. And maybe he isn't the guy. Maybe if you bring somebody in who can sort of control that game and be the guy. Because I think maybe that's what is realized is, when he was in Liga MX, yes, he was a highly played player, a highly touted player, a talented player, but he wasn't the guy. And I think that's kind of what we've seen with Julian Gressel. Julian Gressel went from a role player on a team with two of the best players in Major League Soccer at the time, Miguel Almirón and Joseph Martinez, to the main guy, one of the highest paid players on the team, the main guy. And that's always what you run the risk of. Yes, you get a player in here who's talented, who has talent, and he certainly deserves to, if you're able to get him, you get him. But sometimes there's a difference when you're sort of a role player on a good team in Liga MX, and then you come to MLS where you are now the guy, the highest paid player. There are expectations on you there that are not on another player. You don't know how players react. And I think that's what we've seen from both Julian Gressel and Edison Flores. I think they're both starting to kind of kick that off a little bit. I think they're both seeing their values drop. I'm sure Julian Gressel is not happy with how his season's gone. I'm sure Edison Flores is not happy. I don't know. We don't know what. I think with any player, I think you could make an argument, maybe with the exception of Paul Arriola, you can make an argument for every player not being here next year. There is not and maybe the academy guys. I'll throw them off to the side as well. The really young guys, but everyone else, I think there's an argument. Eric Sorger could not be here next year. Gelman Rivas cannot be here next year. Julian Gressel, maybe the team decides they want to go a different direction and, they need some Gam and Tam. They ship him off because he still has some value. Maybe they decide, nope, sorry, Edison, it's not working out. We're going to sell you for $3 million and we're going to take a loss, but we're going to get something back for you. There's a lot of guys on this team that almost the entire, when you're bad, that's what happens. I mean, you can't make an argument for people in there. I think we'll see because they were kind of in the beginning of sort of a rebuild, a sort of retooling, a sort of I think you'll see a lot more guys stay and just say it was a crazy situation with COVID. The market also, the biggest thing you got to think about too is they're not. I mean, DC already had to not. They have said they had two marquee signings they were looking at that they could not sign because of COVID, and I think you're going to see that. You won't see it from the big clubs like Liverpool, and they're still going to be wheeling and dealing, but you're going to see a lot of MLS clubs, I think, that are not the Atlantas, LAs, FCs of the world going to start tightening their belts a little bit, and that's going to be around the world too. They're going to be clubs that are they rely on those ticket sales just as much as MLS does. So,
and I don't imagine, when does the season normally start? Is it March?
yeah, March usually. Our first game, the first home opener was February 29th.
Do you see people in stands in the United States in March?
No.
And if you do, it's certainly not a full stadium.
No.
So you're right. This isn't going anywhere as far as the financial pressures that were there before. They're going to be there again, and I think that'll just be more cuts. Like I think in their mind, I think in their worst case scenario, as this happened, they were probably like, all right, well, this season's a loss, but next year we'll be able to make it back. But I'm not exactly positive about that. I'm pretty positive they won't. I can't see it happening any other way.
I think the real question is going to be. I think the only way you see this team change is if there's. I mean, really, that it's like anything. If there's new ownership, if the ownership stays the same, there's going to be there's no way it can change from what it is, and that's sad to say. I would like to see them say, okay, we're not going to be able to do this. Let's commit to doing something differently. Let's commit to how can we maximize sort of a small budget, and that's what you need to, get in the habit of doing, I think. And DC is not going to be alone in this. There's going to be a lot of other clubs that are going to tighten their belt.
Opportunities for youth will continue to increase. I wish there were more fringe guys, maybe some players that lit it up for Loudoun last year that might get a chance. There really aren't, nope. Unfortunately. So that's really what that is. I think you're right. I think it will be very interesting to see what kind of coach we can bring in. The list of potentials is long and continues to grow, which for me is good. Although if you look at the list, there is not a large degree of ambition in a lot of those names. It's a lot of MLS adjacent, former MLS assistants. Which is fine, but that's maybe where we're at. Like that, if we are as resource constrained as we are, or we think we might be, does it make sense to spend more money than we ever have on a coach before, who is going to have ideas about how active we need to be in the market when we can't be? Maybe not. Maybe it's a bridge.
There is not. I would say even right now too, because you have COVID. That I think, yes, DC made the move to say, all right, we're going elsewhere. Atlanta's made that move, but I think there are still a lot of coaches out there that may be shown the door if they have the type of season they're having, but because it's COVID, they might get like a pass. They might get like it's unstigmatized circumstances. We're gonna reevaluate you next year. Hopefully under a somewhat more normal season. We'll see what it's like. We can't predict. Right. We can barely predict what happened this season. I think there's not a lot of movement. So I think the pool is thin. The pool is thin of real reputable coaches. I think it's encouraging that they're going out and looking at some coaches of color rather than just the usual. If this team, the only way I am going to be really upset is if they go out and they hire a Dominic Kinnear or a Dave Sarakan, one of those types of names, because that would signal to me that, and I can hear the press release right now. It's like they hire one of those coaches. It's like, oh, this is a long time hire, successful manager, been to MLS Cups, won, these types of trophies 10 years ago. It's not what the team, I would rather the team than would go out and maybe make a risky signing. Go out and find a coach that maybe not everybody's really paying attention to it and give it a shot. So, they're going to be, I think regardless of who they hire, there's going to be something about it that is going to be a drawback or a potential Well, we'll see how this goes. There's not going to be a coach that immediately I think this team is going to hire and be like, this is perfect pick, great pick, fantastic. This is perfect. I just don't see that. I don't see that happening.
No, well, look at our budget.
Yeah.
I think I think that that's not going to happen. But I think whoever it is, a philosophy is free.
Yeah.
Like an idea, a style of play is free. An idea about what you want the team to represent and be doesn't cost you anything. So I think we're optimistic in general. We continue to watch this team and hope for wins. So I think whoever it is, we'll be somewhat excited about, provided again it's not Dominic Kinnear.
Yeah.
It could be someone like Dominic Kinnear. I could absolutely, particularly if you're saying, we understand we have to invest more in this team. It will not be now. It will not be next year. Let's just find someone, a new voice who understands the peculiarities of MLS and can wring blood from a stone, similar to what Ben did, but isn't Ben. You could see them doing something like
See,
that. But
that used to be a very strong narrative. Is you needed a coach that understood the league. That whole idea, I think, is very much off the table.
it's still pervasive, though. If you read any of the articles that talk about coaches coming here, that's still a major concern. Is someone understanding, or someone who can tolerate Byzantine league structure and rules and allocation.
Well,
And
I mean, that's honestly when it's good to have a guy like Dave Casper who takes over that role, and that's ultimately that is. I just think it's less of a factor. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years ago, yeah, it was a huge deal. I think the roster rules have gotten to the point where you can build a decent. The biggest problem is that you would have a coach, and most coaches, the secret's out, so to speak.
Yep.
So most coaches, I think, are well aware of that.
And two, the MLS Super Draft is sort of irrelevant now.
Yeah.
So they don't have to worry about college soccer at all. That used to be a thing where, we'll get a college coach who's really familiar. Let's get Sasha because, he knows the college game. I don't care. We could do that. That's fine. But yeah. I think that knowledge base is no longer a real value.
If you're going to hire, Caleb Porter was hired because he took a program like Akron and did things that no other college coach was doing.
Although look at those players. Look at some of the players that he had.
Perry Kitchen.
Yeah, Perry Kitchen. Darlington Nagbe was from Akron too, I believe, right?
Yeah, Darlington's turned out pretty well. He's had a position move, but that's why Caleb Porter is successful in MLS because I love Sasha. Sasha's very happy at producer Brian Arsene Wenger. There you go. That would be ridiculous.
He's available.
I would be all for it, to be honest.
He's used to a team that doesn't want to spend a lot of money.
But I'm not sure it's the type. His idea of not having a budget is like $40 million. This idea of having a budget is like $5 million.
It's on a scale. He's just gotta. Times are tough. Tighten the belt. I think our players would hate, and producer Brian could tell me on this. All I know about Arsene is that he ascribes to the Japanese school of repeating a task over and over and over and over and over again until you can until you're competent, until you're an expert, and that practice because of that was exceedingly mindless and torturous for some players that were not used to. They were used to just yucking it up and doing different things, but he was like, no. We are gonna skill build. We're gonna do this thing 100 million times until you can do it right. So I'm curious how MLS. Although if it's Wenger, then they'll probably be like, okay, this is probably a good idea. I'll be like Henry if I do this.
Most of those players would never dream of the idea of being coach, and that's the option DC has is to hire a big name coach that people would want to come play for, and you do something like that, you can. A large reason that Miguel Almiron came to Atlanta was because they hired Tata Martino, and he's like, I get to play under Tata Martino. He's a great coach. I'm going to learn a lot under him, and he did, and he flourished. So that's I hope DC's at least consider
Arsene to DC. Let's do it. Let's do it. We're the show. We're the show that is pioneering, bringing in a living legend, or Alex Ferguson. What's he doing? He's 97 years old, I think, but he still goes to games. I think he's feeling better. He had a stroke. I think he's better now. So let's just any coach that you remember from the mid 2000s who is still alive, let's start a rumor mill. Let's get the blogs talking. Scolari's available. I think he's coaching no one. I think he got fired by Palmeiras.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's probably going to be. It's going to be. My projection is going to be somebody who is either going to be, unfortunately, a retread like Dominic Kinnear, or it's going to be somebody who
Tom
they
Stone.
say. Ugh. Do we want to go back down that road?
Yeah,
again?
let's bring Tommy back. Full circle.
John has bad ideas right now. Everybody stop listening to
Kurt
John.
Adolfo. We'll bring Kurt Adolfo back,
God,
and then
no.
Ben can be an assistant.
No.
It will
All
be
right,
like
all right. That's it. We're done. I'm ending the show right now. Done.
it'll be like
Sorry.
those 10 years never happened.
Do we want to talk anything about Philly? Do we want
No.
to? We don't.
No.
Old news.
Philly or Atlanta? Atlanta is who we play this weekend.
I was talking about who we played. Philly. We got to talk about maybe a little bit about that game. But
No, I don't want to do that.
okay, they tied. They played well.
Yeah,
Against
4 points. 4 points from 2 games. Chad Ashton is a mastermind.
Chad Ashton, new coach. All right.
Yep.
Guys, rfkrefugees.com. We've been bad about getting content out there. We're going to work on doing that. Life's getting away from us. John, do you have anything you need to plug? You're the plug machine, man.
I am the plug machine. I believe if you bought a shirt, you're going to get it in 2 weeks.
Cool.
So expect to see us wearing it. I was thinking about it. I was like, should I buy an RFK Refugees face mask, like a mask, and then just walk around and have people asking, what is that? And then I can tell them. I have a real big problem. I see a guy in a DC United shirt, like walking around. I'm like, kind of want to talk to him about the show. Kind of want to see if he listens to the show. I never do it, but I always want to do it. I always think, man, that's how you get listeners. It's buzz marketing. No, I have nothing to plug. Follow us on Twitter.
Follow us on Twitter, twitter.com/podcast. Sorry about the phones, guys. We're trying to work on some new things with the show, so to give it a better content. So we'll stay tuned on that. We'll catch you guys next week. Vamos.